even supposed to be on this channel?
Hey, what's up guys, Einar here. We're almost halfway through the 2020s and Nick has made more shows than Cartoon Network in comparison. Does that mean they have better quality control and love for their craft? Or are they just crapping out stinkers that get cancelled for not being good? Or actually good shows that got cancelled too soon because Nick hates us? Who is to say really? Let's finish this Nick retro rank so I can do other things. No, this is not My Little Pony, it's Pony. Just a pony. You know, talking about MLP doesn't sound that bad. Created by Ant Blades, It's Pony is a show about a pony that talks and hangs around your average family and goes on wacky low-stake adventures with some high-stake dangers mixed in. Honestly, I think this show looks very cute with its simplistic shapes and crayon-esque outlines, and with a cast that is pretty enjoyable. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, the least interesting thing about the show is the titular pony, who's just named Pony. When it comes to talking animal mascots in shows like this, they are mostly annoying. Pony is not winning my favorite talking animal mascot anytime soon. I think the family taking care of the pony, the friends her owner hangs out with, and even the chickens the family owns are more charming than him. But I chuckled once or twice, and I would probably check them out again once or twice. I don't have a lot to say really. This show is pretty good for what it is, but at the same time, there have been a lot of shows from Nick in a row that are either bad, meh, or okay, and all lasted less than 2 years. And spoilers for the majority of the 2020 shows, there's not a single show that has become the next biggest thing yet. But that doesn't mean there aren't some good stuff ahead. So with that said, It's Pony gets a high B. Hey kids, you like video games? Well, this show that got cancelled way too soon is just the show for you. Wait, created by Eric Robles of Fanboy and Chun Chum fame and Dan Milano of Greg the Bunny fame, Glitch Tech is a show with a very interesting concept, where video games come to life and your average GameStop employees are tasked to stop them from causing havoc a la Men in Black style and developing relationship between other employees, not as a la Man in Black style. Unless. I, for one, think the show is pretty great. The animation is top-notch eye candy thanks to Flying Bark Production, known for helping with the animation for Rise of TMNT, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and Lego Monkey Kid, a show about a Lego-themed product that does not use Lego pieces for the show. I don't know what this genre is called, but it's now my favorite thing. And speaking of TMNT, there was gonna be a crossover. I don't know which turtle it's gonna be, but you know, I could make a wild guess. But you know, they never made it due to reasons that sucks. I mean, as great as this show looks, I think the cast and the stories are fine, but maybe I would have enjoyed both more if it kept going for like, I don't know, one more season. Like the rival character Mitch, who is the most unlikable member of the cast that gets like 1 or 2 moments to shine and proves there is more to him than just an epic gamer man. Like, if there were gonna be more episodes, I assume Mitch would play more of a role and develop into a more likable character in the end, especially when the final episode ends on the most surprising cliffhanger, leaving the show with a lot of unanswered questions, with not just the final episode, but a lot of other things like, was Zara's crush on Hector gonna go anywhere? Was Ridley Croft gonna be more relevant in future episodes? Were there gonna be more screenshots of Miko's ass posted on DeviantArt? Yes. But who knows, maybe it will come back. Optimist, realist, yada yada. The Middlemost Post. Created by John Trapick III and also developed by him alongside Dave H. Johnson, comes a show about a grown mailman who delivers mail alongside a sentient cloud and a walrus. Imagine Postman Pat without it being a slice of life show grounded in reality. So, you know, it's more like the Postman Pat movie where he gets replaced by a robot. Yes, that's a real movie. I think the show is cute and all that jazz. Parker is a good little clown boy, Russell is adorable, and it's always fun to hear John DiMaggio in anything. I like the weird father-son dynamic between both Parker and Angus. That weird larva in a mech suit is just the most funniest concept I've ever seen, and I can't help but love her. However, I think the colors are way too saturated, the humor can be very lame, and the stories are okay. We have come to a point where most of these silly comedy shows are all starting to feel the same, so it all comes down to if the show does something interesting to grab my interest very well. It grabbed my attention for like a hot minute, but you know, I've seen better. B. During my Cartoon Network video, I shared my hot take of not liking Star Wars as a franchise cause I'm not a Twitter user that bullies women and people of color for being in a Star Wars movie. But you know, I don't hate Star Wars, I'm just not a big fan. There's a difference. But what are my thoughts on its rival Star Trek?
Hey, Captain Picard is not gay, he's British.
Well, at first, I personally never got that into it. Most of the times I saw Star Trek through memes, tributes, crossovers, and parodies. Does anyone remember Stone Trek? Of course you don't, because you're a normal person, unlike me. It wasn't until I saw 2 Next Gen movies that are said to be the bad ones. Then I watched some Star Trek Next Gen. It's pretty funny.
That is how the Klingon lures a mate.
So you can say that I'm very neutral regarding Star Trek as a franchise, but I'm a huge fan of the 60s actors, thanks to that Futurama episode, and also the Next Gen actors, cause they have the tendency to appear everywhere.
But what about the detail of the chocolate chip cookies?
To be honest, I'm very autistic, and every Star Trek character is an automatic voiced in. Now the time came for Nick to try to make their own animated Star Trek show, which was not just an animated version of a pre-existing show or a comedy-based show, but its own original thing. That show would be Star Trek Prodigy, and oh my god, that's just Clone Wars. I'm watching Clone Wars. They have the same stylized 3D look compared to the majority of their franchise installments. One of the main antagonists has robot legs. D. Bradley Baker is an additional voice actor for the majority of the supporting cast. This is Clone Wars, or Rebels, because it's a cast of younger members of Starfleet compared to the predecessors of adults with their weird adult problems like having sex with aliens, survivor's guilt, war crimes, coffee. So there was bound to be a show about a team of randos coming together to explore the universe again, but in a different context. In fact, I like this cast of characters from Zero, Gwyn, and the best character, Jenkum. One of the main characters is an AI based on Catherine Janeway, who is the main character of Star Trek Voyager, which is a show I have not seen. Then later on, the actual Catherine Janeway shows up and also plays a major role in the show. So if you're a fan of Voyager, maybe you will like Prodigy, and it will probably expand your enjoyment on Star Trek, since, you know, I think the context of knowing who this person is in the first place might help. In fact, the majority of callbacks are kind of fun, even though Spock came with reused audio that was uncanny as hell, and Wesley played a major role in the second season after some massive development in Next Gen that caught me off guard because I haven't got to that part of Next Gen yet. I think the serial story in the show is very interesting, and despite my first impression of the animation being, that's Clone Wars, it kind of stands on its own, you know, because it takes a lot for me to get turned off by 3D animation. Honestly, this might be the best Star Trek show I've seen from beginning to end, because it's the only Star Trek show I've seen from beginning to end. I should really finish Next Gen right now, so I'll just give it an A. Based on a comic strip series by Lincoln Pierce that I have never read, Big Nate is a show about a boy in school who does school stuff. Yeah, that's about it. When it comes to shows based on comic strips that I've actually watched, I've probably watched like 6 or 7 of them. Then again, some of them I didn't know were originally comic strips, and even then, I have never gone out of my way to actually read them. I think the premise is fine, and the cast are kind of fun with the exception of Nate himself. If I had to put Nate on like a Dennis the Menace scale, which is a thing that I just made up, I would put him in the middle between the American one and the British one. No angel or a devil, just an average boy that's kind of a piece of shit. I have a rational distaste for shows about troublemaking boys who either cause mischief on purpose and are just unlikable to everyone around them. I prefer if their mischief is more of a double type of deal. The math don't lie. Also, shout out to Kevin Michael Richardson for playing a principal again. If the show wasn't made for kids, they would be the same character. Well, saying the show is for kids is kind of a stretch because the humor in the show is very unhinged.
Are you ready to pee? Huh? Who's ready to pee?
I would say that it's pretty funny from time to time, with the exception of the gross out humor. The look of the show feels weird compared to the charming peanut look the comic had, with some characters actually having Tintin eyes, while the others have round white eyes, which feels very off. I think the show is good compared to, I don't know, fucking T-Tuff and Horrid Henry. But it's not Shin-Chan. Shin-Chan is the GOAT. This show is a B.
I must die.
Oh boy, or aw girl. It's another toy franchise made into a show. But this time it's the one I know nothing about other than, well, it's Bratz dolls, but all Halloweeny. I used to watch the Bratz show a lot when I was young, and I wonder which girls' toys were actually the scariest. And yeah, this is my first time seeing anything from this franchise. It's the CGI show, which, you know, it looks passable for sure. The majority of the jokes are that they are monsters and they do silly monster things as if it were like a normal everyday thing to do. The premise is literally Rosario plus vampire without the unnecessary fan service and the random drastic series tone shift at the second half of the series. The monster designs are just Barbie dolls with horror aesthetics. Kinda lame to be honest, but this is a multimedia franchise, so what do I know? There's like an ongoing subplot for like 2 out of the 3 main girls trying to figure out their place in this world, or getting roped into the political world of Werebeast or some shit. I don't fucking remember. But the majority of the show is just wacky high school shenanigans, and the main trio and or other cast members are trying to learn very obvious lessons. But hey, this might just be the show for you, and I'm not gonna take that away from you. In fact, if we're gonna make comparison notes, I liked Gravedale High, and it's kind of weird that Gravedale High didn't make any toys. Just like me with the script, this show is kinda all over the place. So, you know, see. It doesn't matter when I try something different in my videos. I will always come back to talk about Transformers. And in case you didn't know, I went to art school, learned video editing. My final project was a review about my favorite movie, the 1986 Transformers movie. After that, I made videos on Transformers, but then I got interested in making videos about other things that I like. But when I get to talk about Transformers in any way, shape, or form, regardless of the subject matter, like, for example, when I talked about Transformers shows under Cartoon Network, I was a little biased, but oh boy, Transformers Earthspark might be the most divisive Transformers show I'm gonna be talking about, because some of the criticism are fair, and most are just petty nitpicks that are generally unhinged. Earthspark takes place in a world where the Cybertron War has ended, but with a new human organization that starts to hunt down the Decepticons with the help of Autobots and Megatron, who, like in the IDW comics, has redeemed himself. Well, the comic was more about him seeking atonement rather than forgiveness, but potato, tomato. But it comes with the obvious, this organization is not all what it seems twist that you can see coming from a mile away. Meanwhile, some human kids go into a cave and discover a new type of robot lifeform called Terrans that were made by one of the original 13th, Quintus Prime. That's right, the guy who's responsible for these assholes. And that's just the basic premise. The episodes dive into more familiar faces and their thoughts on the current status quo. One of the most interesting developments is Megatron, who has redeemed himself, but unlike IDW Max, who had a lot of baggage. Most of this mech's past is off screen, but it somehow works, and honestly, I sometimes have hard time going back to evil bastard man Megatron. Nothing against all these guys, just that these two have made such an impact on me that the only evil Megatron I can take is a purple dinosaur. And he's not the only interesting character in this show. We also have Starscream, who surprises me with his whole stick of being a victim of abuse, which is actually tackled in a serious manner and wouldn't be the last time we explore something similar to that dynamic. Tarantulas, who unlike his more famous portrayal portrayal of wacky, insane scientist is a loner who just wants to be left alone to do science. Bumblebee, who gives off the vibe of a washout that may or may not reflect on how overused he is in TF media. And Grimlock, played by Keith David, who's portrayed as someone dealing with shell-shock trauma. But the biggest stars are the Terrans, a new race of Transformers who have never experienced war before and just want to live the best life they can. I love all the Terrans like Twitch, Hashtag, Jawbreaker, and Nightshade, the latter one being the most groundbreaking character in Transformers history, who yes, was the subject of criticism, but those were just nitpicks from a bunch of bigots. So yeah, all hail our non-binary icon. With all that said, Season 1 of Earthspark is pretty perfect. I would give it an S for sure. But then Season 2 and 3 happened. And while they're not terrible, they definitely are a step down for sure. Interesting aspects of the show just get swept away for more generic stories about the Autobots waging their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Also, new Terrans show up, but they're evil. Hey, did you like Starscream's arc in first season? Well, his arc in season 2 is just him devolving into being evil again. Most of my favorite characters get pushed to the background so we can just focus on the first two Terrans and more Bumblebee. The animation is just passable at best and slow at worst. Wait, the guys who made the Megamind show worked on these seasons? Oh no. Even when they introduced my favorite baby boy Cosmos into the show, it's not enough to make up for the mediocrity I experienced. Also, Prowl shows up, and seriously, if Prowl isn't a ninja motorcycle, then I care not for Prowl. And with the mediocre final battle against the Quintessons, I would say it wasn't as terrible as I thought it would be, but it was not that great. So, you know, it went from like S to like, I don't know, low A, high B, I guess. But then that season finale came out of fucking nowhere way later, and oh my god, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever watched.
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
And no, you can't just introduce Octopunch, the most glup shitto Transformer character of all time, and expect me to be filled with glee and forgiveness, because the amount of ass this entire experience gave me, it's not enough! Because you bring back Hot Rod and you character assassinate him to fucking death, and then you introduce Legion Maximo, who came out of fucking nowhere, and he looks like Netflix Skeletor. He's supposed to look like Loki or a Throne of Thorns! And in the end, Megatron is evil again with amnesia, and everyone's just like, huh, Mondays, huh? We still had Cyberworld airing, and now there are talks about adapting the Skyboom comics into a show, while this show was just painfully crawling to the end credit with no plans and no hope at the same time. Even as a Transformers fan, I am not that biased. I loved what it did in the beginning and all the promises it had to offer, and then fumbled, then tumbled, and crashed in the end. So I'm gonna say something controversial. I think Robots in Disguise 2015 is a better show. Sure, it's episodic and a flawed follow-up to Prime, but at least it didn't fuck up as much as Earthspark. In fact, I have enjoyed Cyberworld a lot more. Sure, that show feels more toyetic and is more targeted for a younger audience, but at least it's trying something interesting and weird. Even when I'm trying to talk about Nick shows, I just can't shut up about Transformers. Anyway, read the Skyboom comics if you haven't, they're good. And Void Rivals, I really like Void Rivals for some reason. Before this finale came out, this was a B show, but I'm gonna give it a C. I don't hate it. It's not the worst thing Transformers has done. Believe me, it's not the worst thing they have done. Rock, paper, scissors. Did you ever ask yourself, what if the game Rock, Paper, Scissors were characters? No. Here's Rock, Paper, Scissors by Kyle Stagina and Joss Lerman. It has all the trademarks of all the 3 comedy-based Nicktoons that happen to star either animals or living objects. The trio are fun and I like some of the jokes. Rock is a lovable himbo voiced by King Shark from the Harley Quinn show. Paper is a know-it-all who is actually an idiot who who has a badass sister called Sandpaper, and Sister is the asshole, a more PG version of Master Shake. Now, based on the rules of the game, does that imply their power level is consistent within the show? Does Paper fold Rock because he is smarter than Rock? Is Scissors better than Paper because he can kill him? Would Rock beat the shit out of Scissors if he wanted to? What about the other inanimate objects that are living things like Pencil over there, whose only traits are actually being smart, and Paper wants to smash her? Also, the trash can, what's the deal with him? Does he trump anyone, or does he just suck? Where are the other variants like a well, a wizard, a Spock? But no, turns out them being sentient objects is just an aesthetic, and it's all about wacky, insane adventures. And in terms of comedy-based screwball shows featuring anthropomorphic characters like ponies and clouds of the 2020's, I would say this show is the best of the bunch. Very similar to Angry Beavers, Cat Dog, and Rocko's Modern Life, but not as great. Probably like Cat Scratch level of good. So yeah, if anything else, this might be high A. Based on another book series by Lincoln Pierce that I've also never read, we got Max and the Midnight, an overarching story about a group of kids trying to overthrow a tyrant in medieval times, with our MC Max, who looks into the camera to narrate to us, the viewers. I'm very tired of this trope, but I like the majority of the characters. Max and the Midnights are an enjoyable bunch, Mumblin the Wizard is funny as hell, the villains King Ghastly and Fendra are both very delightful and very funny as well, and then there's Budrick. I love Budrick. Unlike Big Nate, the look of the show emulates the books much better. The most unique visual thing the show offers us is the CGI emulating stop motion with the cinematic camera movement. Like that a lot. Some of the music, the lingo, and the references feel very modern, but it makes a whole lot of sense when you continue watching the show even further. I kinda like how dreadful the setting is, yet it's all played for laughs. This might be the most serious storytelling Lincoln has ever made. Yeah, there's one or two overarching story in Big Nate, but on the scale of Ding Dong Kill the Witch compared to Nate's sister having relationship issues with her boyfriend. Not saying that isn't serious or high stakes, but you know what I mean. Now, I wrote this before I saw season 3, but now I have seen it, and holy shit, the plot thickens. Max and the Midnights get more development, Mumbling goes on a whole side quest with more wild time traveling concept, and a new interesting antagonist. Fucking hell, this show does a lot of things right, and now I am very excited for season 4. Also, Max and the Midnight says gay rise, so fuck you, it gets an automatic S rank. The final Nicktoon show as of now, unless that new Avatar show randomly decides to air as I'm writing the script, recording, editing, or when you are watching this video. Created by Paul Walting and Kyle Marshall, Wylde Pak is about two half-siblings and their dynamic as they get to know each other throughout the summer with their own differences, with one being a gamer girl and the other being a wildlife boy. First off, animation is great. I love the slightly moving outlines of the likes of Ed, Edd and Eddy, the speed of its pace and comedic timing, because this show is hilarious. I never laughed so much in comparison to the other 2020 shows, but it's also very heartwarming. It's nice to have a show where the main character has divorced parents who are not nasty to each other. I like the funny old lady Harmony who actually gets to have strong emotional moments, and a sibling rivalry that slowly turns into a wholesome friendship between loving and caring brother and sister to stay away from me, Loud House. And similar to the Casa Grandes with Mexico, it's nice to have a show that shows respect to South Korea and its culture. I'm kinda glad this is the last show I get to talk about in this retrospective. Being the worst show would have sucked, and being mid would have been a terrible way to end this long video series, making this a great bookend with an S. At first, I came to this retrospective with much skepticism, but now we're at the end. After I've watched the majority of these shows for the first time, it actually comes much to my surprise that I like the majority of the shows. Sure, there were some stinkers here and there, but they were very few in between. The worst aspect of Nick is that they can't move past their greatest success, where it feels like they just try to duplicate it over and over again. While trying something new and interesting is always a gamble where they just toss it aside. Also, yeah, with the bad reception that the company has had throughout its long history, I would say this was a weird experience to say for sure. I'd say I'm more of a Cartoon Network guy than a Nick guy, but I can respect what Nick has done. Maybe next time I'll do Disney shows, or Teletoon, who's to say. Anyway, here are my top 5 best Nick shows and the bottom 5 worst Nick shows. The top 5 are not in any particular order, and I don't really hate any of the bottom 5, I just don't care about them compared to the majority of the other shows. Now let's go to some of my friends talking about their experience with Nick. Enjoy!
I never watched a lot of Nickelodeon, but one thing I did watch was Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. But where people might disagree with me is that I kind of prefer The Legend of Korra. First of all, Korra is just cool. The kind of cool that Caillou the Airbender just never achieved. And she has a polar bear. Although the side characters weren't as memorable as Katara and Sokka and all them, but they did have their moments, and I enjoyed Korra's relationship with them and all the returning characters. The setting itself also really appeals to me. It's so cool to see everything wasn't just reused from The Last Airbender, and that the world has actually evolved from the previous setting to this 1920s style world. Honestly, I just love it when fantasy is mixed with technology. The two don't always have to be separate. I also love that some themes that weren't really touched on in the original got some more fleshing out here, especially bloodbending. That concept was so interesting, and it was in like one episode of the original, as well as the whole bender versus non-bender stuff. It was all just super interesting to me. The city though, that thing was such a cool setting. I just love these big cities in fiction. Ever seen Midgar from Final Fantasy VII? That thing is peak. One other show I did watch was the Fairy Godparents show made by Bad Timeline Seth MacFarlane, but in my country that show was aired on Disney Channel, so to me it's a Disney show, I guess. Hey look, I have this YouTube channel you can check out where I make videos about KFC and frogs if you're into that for some reason.
Einar, cut this bit out. Due to the magic of technology, you can just chroma key me and just put me in random clips if you want. That's why I made it yellow. So do with that as you will. You're free to use this footage as you see fit. But anyway, hi, I'm a goblin on the internet, here to tell you about cartoons from my childhood that you've probably already seen. When it comes to Nickelodeon shows, I feel like I can attribute large portions of my humor to SpongeBob. Not only does the show tap really deeply into absurdist humor, but its very basis is steeped in subversion of expectations. I think the simple fact that show creator Steven Hillenburg decided to pick mostly tide pool animals for the show's characters gives it such whimsy. I don't think that's a stretch to call it one of the main cornerstones of Gen Z humor even. Now, I could basically write an essay on this topic, but in essence, it's that absurdity, that constant subversion that I feel makes this show so memorable. If you will permit me to be a joke surgeon for a minute, we can examine the classic episode Pizza Delivery. The episode starts with a phone call. The first subversion is Squidward grabbing the phone from SpongeBob at the last seconds. That is then double subverted by Mr. Krabs grabbing it in the same manner. The customer orders a pizza, which they don't serve, so Mr. Krabs just pulps some Krabby Patties into a pizza, manifests a box to put it in. Third and fourth versions in rapid succession. We don't deliver, but you do. Punchline. That's about 5 jokes per joke in a little over 30 seconds. And the show keeps this up constantly. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. It's just a fantastically written show that I think still holds up.
It's not just a boulder, it's a rock. The pioneers used to ride these babies for miles.
Though I never grew up with most of the Nickelodeon show, I did watch like some like very late. I did watch Invader Sim when I was a teen, so like all of it before it got cancelled-ish. I don't know. One of my favorite characters is Dr. Membrane. He's like the funniest character for like how oblivious he is. Even in the movie, he's like super oblivious about everything, or just in denial, if anything. My favorite episode is like a quote. It was a foreshadowing quote on the first episode where the tallest said to Sim, like, wasn't he exiled to like a food court planet? Like, shouldn't you be frying something? That bites Sim in the ass later because like his former boss comes in and kidnaps him and like hijinks ensue. So yeah, like Invader Sim, my favorite show from Nickelodeon. Yes.
So my favorite Nick show would be Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm not really much of a SpongeBob guy, although I do appreciate SpongeBob. And I don't really have very strong feelings about Korra, except that Sahir did nothing wrong. But yeah, so Avatar The Last Airbender is basically about these aliens from outer space who challenge some Earthlings to a basketball game. No, wait. That's something else. Oh yeah, Avatar The Last Airbender, that's the show where the Fire Nation attacks. And so very good, cool things are happening when the Fire Nation attacks. Like war and devastation. That's some good shit right there, man. That's some good shit right there.
I was asked to talk about my favorite Nickelodeon show. Unfortunately, the list was way too long to go over all of it. But yeah, I would say Fairy Odd Parents would be on the top. The characters are idiotic and fun, and the storyline is all over the place, but that was the beauty of the old cartoons. It was a good comedy duo of two fairies always following a kid to give him wishes, and one horrible babysitter that was always trying to ruin his life. But the show just goes on and on and on. And there have been a few weird headcanons of it. I can still think of a few of the jokes. Cosmo is my favorite because he's a fucking idiot. And I even have a pin of him. Where is it again? Here is my pin collection. You can just see everything that is there. Oh yeah, here are they all. But it's still my favorite. I just don't know why. My second favorite was Avatar The Last Airbender. Surprise, surprise. The other one it's been with me for so long. I don't think anyone else can get as deep roots as those. I still remember them as a kid watching, and we rarely got shows where I'm from. So, yeah, thank you.
On the subject of Nickelodeon shows, I didn't really watch them a lot growing up. I did catch a few here and there, Wild Thornberrys, Invader Zim, Fairly Odd Parents, really good shows, Avatar The Last Airbender, and and I do like a lot of individual shows, but have never been a real Nickelodeon fan, didn't really grow up with it, saw most of these shows a bit later in life, during my teenage years, instead of, during my childhood. It's a really good network, but like I said, wasn't really for me, didn't really grow up with it, so I don't have a lot to say about it, except that when they do a really good show, it is phenomenal.
Hello there, I'm a pathetic loser, back at it again to talk about... wait, what was it? Hold on. Nickelodeon cartoons. Huh. Yeah, I'll be completely honest, I didn't really grow up with a lot of Nickelodeon cartoons. But fuck it, I'll give it a shot. When it comes to Nickelodeon cartoons, the first thing that comes to mind are the SpongeBob movie, not the show, we'll get to it, Fairly Odd Parents, The Wild Thornberrys, Danny Phantom, and Avatar. The reason why I think of the SpongeBob movie instead of the show is because, well, I didn't watch a lot of the show as a kid. I never had the TV channels that had SpongeBob as a kid. I only watched a handful of episodes at my grandma's place who did have. But she lived about 40 to 50 minute drive away, so yeah. But I did get my parents to rent the SpongeBob movie a few times. And, well, from what I remembered, it was a pretty good movie. Not something that I'm planning on watching again anytime soon, but, it can stay back there in my childhood. Now, a Nickelodeon show that I did grow up with was The Wild Thornberrys. And, yeah, it was a good show. Again, not something that I'm planning on watching again anytime soon, but, Again, it can just stay back there. But the show that I'm the most familiar with is The Fairly Odd Parents, which I watched at Disney, which I don't understand, and honestly I don't care enough to understand. And, my opinion on it is just like the other two shows. It's good, I remember it, not planning on watching it anytime soon. Danny Phantom is a show that I will 100% admit I haven't watched. I'm not watched Danny Phantom, I didn't grow up with it. So why is it here? Well, it's because of this ghost goth chick. And the reason for that is because the internet is a very fun place where you get to learn about some very interesting people. No, I am not okay. Thanks for not asking. And Avatar, because just like Danny Phantom, I haven't watched it. But I know I need to watch it. Because everybody tells me it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And yeah, I am planning to. Especially because of the new fighting game that looks really fucking cool. Seriously though, the movement in that game looks... it looks smooth. It looks beautiful. It looks like a succulent male. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Now, if I could excuse myself, I gotta go to Brazil.
The ringing in my ears feels sick.
Hello there, Lucer from the future here. Want to add a little update of sort at the end of this. Because, well, in between me making that first video watch and now, and making this one, I have watched and finished Avatar: The Last Airbender. And what did I think of it? I liked it. It was a pretty good show. Do I think it's the greatest show ever? No. I have a few problems with it. It's no Villain Saga or Breaking Bad or Columbo. I still liked it, but I have problems with it. As an example, let me use what is simultaneously one of my favorites, but also my absolute least favorite episode of the entire show. That will be Season 3, Episode 9, Nightmares and Daydreams. Whenever the episode focuses on Zuko and his struggle within and questioning whether what he was doing was the right thing and is this what he truly wants, is honestly fantastic. It is great, and it honestly helped to make him one of my favorite characters of the show. However, every time we got to Aang and his stupid fucking nightmares about, oh, I have to face the file, but oops, I forgot to wear pants or I didn't do my math homework, honestly made me want to jump off a fucking cliff. Now, I get why the show does this. This is, after all, a show primarily aimed towards children, and children might find this funny. But, as a 29-year-old man, I find this shit fucking infuriating, and it honestly ruins almost the entire episodes for me. Having said that, Avatar is easily the best Nickelodeon cartoon I watched, which, now granted, isn't a whole lot, but still, is pretty damn good. Now, for all two of you who are wondering who I'll be mating in the upcoming fighting game, I'm planning either between Zuko or Azula. Leaning a bit towards Azula, but only time will tell. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Now, if I could excuse myself, I'm late for a resonance cascade. New Mexico looks a lot different from what I remember.
Oh yeah, I forgot to do the fucking Porky Pig outro. That's all, folks. Bye. Bye.